Next news story of the week, and this one is really, really interesting. Out of nowhere, as Final Fantasy 16 was confirmed for PC, and not just that, but the playable demo was released for PC. And not just that, but the playable demo is essentially the same as the playable demo they did for the PlayStation 5 version of the game. I think both of you guys have taken a look at this. I have not even laid eyes on it. I have not seen a single pixel of the Final Fantasy 16 PC port. I'm very curious to hear what you've got to say about it. I'm just looking at the notes on the docket, though. I've got some idea. Who wants to start here? Oliver?
Yes, so I took a look at the game on a reasonably high-end PC, my own PC here, and I took a look at the game to evaluate the visuals with max settings and 4K DLAA, just to see exactly what the big deal is with this PC version. And it does look better on PC. LODs appear better at a distance, so I've got a shot here with some towers in a distance, where clearly the models on PC are more detailed. They're showing more visible geometry. They look better. Again, these are very standard PC upgrades that you would expect to see, frankly. The thing that was surprising to me is that image quality isn't that great, especially with things like depth of field, specular aliasing, fur. Like on Benedicta's outfit, you get that nice fur fringe or that feathery fringe. It does not look great on PS5, does not look great on PC. And again, I was playing with 4K DLAA trying to evaluate the stuff, and it was just super aliased.
DLAA is essentially a nuclear option for image quality.
It is a nuclear option. It is the very best.
It's completely.
Yeah. It's better than DLSS quality. It is to me an extravagance on PC. I rarely use DLAA. I'd rather my power bill be a little bit lower even. I would rather play with DLSS in performance mode or quality mode or balanced mode. But yeah, here with DLAA, I was still getting a lot of specular aliasing on armor, lots of aliasing on little fine details. I think the depth of field might be still at a pretty low resolution because there was still a lot of aliasing with things that were intersecting with that depth of field. The overall image quality is definitely better, but some of those transparencies, and especially that specular aliasing, not too flattering. And again, I wouldn't harp on this so much, but I was just expecting a bit of an improvement from the PS5 that's a little bit bigger than what we're seeing here. There are also a couple other differences. So foliage looks a little bit denser at range, possibly some LOD differences, but it certainly looks like there are better defined leaves and structures to the foliage and bushes and things like that. But then there's another bit of weirdness that I stumbled upon when I was doing these comparisons, which is like the textures. So the textures look mostly the same, if not completely the same. That's to be expected, not a big deal. Textures on PS5 looked fine. I'm not complaining about that. But weirdly on PC, again, with settings maxed out, I had some weirdly poor texture filtering. It looks almost identical to PS5 in the shots that I saw, that I was testing. It looks to me by eye, Alex might be better at this, but it looks to me like 4 times anisotropic-ish. It looks like very console setting. So,
right.
I don't know. I don't know what to think. This is obviously not a game that has been released yet. This is a demo, but these issues are just like a little odd to me, especially with the anti-aliasing, because I don't know, DLSS can struggle with things like depth of field, but usually it does a better job with things like specular aliasing than I'm seeing here. But I think Alex has some thoughts on PC performance that are perhaps more interesting than mine, so maybe he should share his opinions there.
Yeah, I tried it out on the mid to low spec PC that I've been using for coverage for a long time now, and I stuck to an older GPU because I was curious about that. So it's the Ryzen 5 3600, 16 gigs of DDR4 3200 megahertz, as well as the RTX 2070 Super. So right now, a GPU with a 2019 vintage, it's getting old. It's getting old. Mm-hmm. And I guess I was concerned rather quickly. A thing that Oliver didn't mention, but I think does require mentioning, is the frame rate capping in cutscenes. So there's nothing wrong with 30 FPS cutscenes per se, but on PC, when you go, the game does transitions on camera cuts from cutscene graphics to in-game graphics. And then if those are at 30, but then you transition to 120, it looks really jarring. And the initial transition from 120 to 30 in a cutscene also there'll be a frame time lurch as it does it, and it just won't look good. It just really won't look good. And there's also interstitial cutscenes that are done via FMV files, like it was on the PlayStation version. And you can see them a lot more when you have a super high-end PC, I would feel. So those things aren't great. There were probably other differences with an earlier version of the demo, but I only tried the latest one as of Friday. What is the date? Friday, whatever the day is. It's the
23rd. Yes.
So I've played that version of the demo.
The
Another
year
thing
of our
that
Lord 2024.
the year of our Lord 2024. And another thing, I really like the settings menu. I like the design there. So let me say that I usually don't like Square Enix what they do for some things, but the settings menu design seemed really good here. Shader compilation done at the beginning of the game.
Yes.
But Ryzen 5 3600 RTX 2070 Super, boy, this game is heavy in a number of ways. Unsurprising given what we saw on PlayStation 5 when trying to achieve 60 FPS there, where it was just kind of woefully under and the image quality really suffered. Here on PC, trying to do 1440p with their cool DLSS dynamic resolution mode, which I always love. I love dynamic res on PC. It wouldn't muster it always, especially in any of those scenes, like the rare unlocked kind of cutscene-ish moments, as well as just in generic gameplay. It was GPU limited. A concerning thing, though, that I saw is that when the cutscenes are transitioning to different locations, there was a machine gun tap, like of like 80 to 100 millisecond frames as it was doing that. So, and the dynamic res would go really low, and you'd see like a sparkle all of a sudden in between these cutscene transitions. It happens multiple times throughout the prologue area of the game, and it really led to a not very polished feel. That the PlayStation 5 version, obviously, I thought the cutscenes were very polished in the PS5 version in spite of 30 FPS. So that didn't feel great. And the most concerning issue to me is when I didn't even play any further because it just bothered me so much, but you get all the stuff's done, you do the combat prologue teaching thing, and then you just like take control of the character in that little market square in front of the city gates, and it was stuttering so much on this Ryzen 5 3600 PC 2070 Super, regardless of resolution settings. I originally was thinking like, what's going on here? I busted down the resolution to 720p ultra performance mode and unlock the frame rate, and there's just massive 80 to 100 millisecond stutters on this machine just while walking around. And I read some stuff online, and other people are getting this too. Oliver did not experience anything like that on his rig. I cannot even begin to describe what it could be. It is bad, 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 bad. That rig is completely unplayable if that is the experience. So that's not good. Another thing that I noticed, but could explain a little bit about what Oliver was seeing, is that when I did turn the game down to ultra performance mode, I made multiple recordings, but when I did turn the game down to ultra performance mode 720p, that's a really low internal resolution.
Yeah, it's 240p, Alex.
Yes, but it was obvious to see that motion blur post-processing resolution was done at internal resolution, which is actually against NVIDIA guidelines. So like you'd turn the camera and it would just be 240p. It looks incredible. It went straight to, like SNES territory there when you turned the camera. It was really cool. But that's not good. And that could partially explain some of Oliver's concerns regarding image quality, minus the whole anisotropic filtering thing. But right now they've patched a demo for a game, which I just find really curious. Like I'm really wondering what the development strategy is here. Is the demo supposed to get people interested in the game?
That leads me to this question from Chris Toffin. Square Enix released the Final Fantasy 16 demo alongside the PC announcement this week, and they've already released a patch that improves the image quality of all upscalers, fixes UI and gameplay bugs, crash fixes, and promises to improve stuttering and performance in the future. This seems like a great way to have a massive audience with a variety of hardware configurations help unofficially perform QA on their upcoming PC release. Should more companies do this? Well, I think if there's actually evidence of improvements, then yes, is a good answer to that. On the flip side, what you're doing is giving users a first impression that the game isn't particularly performant or has issues.
Right. Exactly that. I think if this was a first time experience and you thought a demo released just a few weeks before a game should be representative, which I think a lot of people usually do think that, then you'd maybe be really turned off by this demo, as I was. But the idea of crowdsourcing a game's improvements over time, like an EA title, early access title, I think that's great in the end, as long as it's, I think when they advertise the demo, maybe they should say it's a demo, but we're also, as part of the advertisement, they should say, we're going to use this to improve the final game. And I think that'd be great to know. Some other notes here, CompuSemble has reported that the game is going to be using direct storage on PC, GPU decompression. This would make it the second outward-facing title that would be using it. And I'm very curious about that because I didn't like the debut actually too much in Ratchet and Clank of that technology. Wasn't impressed, to say the least, and Nixie's apparently wasn't either, based upon our conversations with them. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what effect that has on GPU limited performance in this title. Does that explain that awful machine gun fire of stutters that I saw in the cutscenes? Does it? I don't know. I'll have to wait for the full game.
I have my own thoughts on performance, if I can chime in. So my counterpoint to Alex's point is it runs fine on my PC. No, so I was playing post-patch on my i7-13700K and 4090 system with 32 gigs of DDR5. Running it at 4K with DLSS in performance mode, but max settings still. So it was running at a pretty consistent 60 FPS. Uncapped, it was about 100 FPS for me. It seemed like 100, 110, somewhere in there. But at 60 FPS, just trying to see if I could achieve like a reasonably stable 60 FPS, I was getting some minor frame rate drops in gameplay, couple frames here, couple frames there, sometimes coinciding with traversal, maybe once or twice, but in general, just kind of like, you know, couple frames here, couple frames there, not a gigantic deal. For me, the cutscenes were running at 30 FPS, but they were running at a more stable 30 FPS than what Alex is describing. There were some frame rate drops in the cutscene still, so sometimes it would drop frames. There would be 50 millisecond frames, basically. Not huge stutters, but I don't know why that is. Like, again, this is a game that really should be running the cutscenes at 60 FPS, at least for me. Running at 30 FPS is kind of ridiculous, and then dropping frames on top of that is just kind of insanity, but, you know, they're kind of like randomly dropping frames all over the place. For positive things, I didn't notice any shader comp. There is a shader burn. It took like 27 seconds on my system. It was super fast. Obviously, this is a smaller demo, but it's still okay. And the frame rate caps, I did test out like the 30 FPS cap, and they seem to work correctly without frame pacing issues.
Great.
So,
that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the game really struggles on lower end CPUs. This is a demo. Things could change. But on my system, it was okay. It was not horrible. It was not great. It was not what I expected from this port, frankly, with all the issues with anisotropic filtering, the issues with image quality. And in my case, yeah, there is the reduced res stuff that could be playing a factor in some people's experiences. But I was playing at 4K DLAA, so it should really be okay there. That's kind of a brute force approach. But yeah, I mean, I did at least like, frankly, that the settings for most visual options were just like low, medium, high, instead of like low, medium, high, ultra, nightmare, super nightmare, ultra special nightmare.
Yes.
Like we haven't seen PC titles.
Championship edition hyper fighting.
Yeah, I appreciate. Or like Wukong with very high and then cinematic, which is, you know, its own little special category of quality, I suppose. Yes. But yeah, it's nice having something a little bit more straightforward that's a bit more honest with you, like low, medium, high, screen space reflections on, SSAO on or off, whatever. That's a bit more honest to me. VRS on or off. There's not as much nonsense in that to me. So that was positive at least. But yeah, they have some work to do. Clearly they have some work to do.
Very curious also about that VRS. It did say it degrades like quality of certain screen elements, something like that. I think that was the main description. But I was curious if it was tier 2 or tier 1. You know,
I'd be curious if it was on PS5 as well.
Right.
I didn't notice it, but it could be.
That would be an interesting surprise if it was. But yeah, I guess when it comes to release time, this is like we're going to be finishing off all this coverage, and then this just kind of came out of nowhere. And then after that, I think is God of War Ragnarok. So it's like, There's a lot.
There's a lot going on, as we like to see.
Yeah, and I want to cover every game to the greatest depth possible, but we'll see exactly what happens here given the weird structure of releases that we see right now.